Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. Today we're going to take a look at what I consider to be one of, if not the best looking, 2 premium draft that I could come up with ahead of the season kicking off in just 2.5 weeks now. Fitting in a second premium this season has proven to be more difficult than in seasons past, but I think the 2 premium draft that I've come up with today could be quite tempting to a lot of you. If you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be really appreciated. But in the meantime, let's have a look at that draft. Now, a couple of things will crop up immediately when you first take a look at this defence. The first being that we've gone with 4 at the back. Now, this hasn't been too common amongst the FPL community at the moment, but I think there are a lot of good defenders out there at the moment at reasonable prices and a lot of good defences that we want to target for the opening set of fixtures. I've gone with a strong back 4 and a pretty strong goalkeeper as well, all at 5 million or above. And as you can see, I've even squeezed in a 4.5 million on the bench. So if we go through one by one, Onana makes the cut as the goalkeeper of preference at the moment. I personally really like the Man United defence to start off the season, and at 5 million I think Onana is a really good way of getting into that defence without spending too much money. He should also be really good for bonus points because he makes a lot of short range passes, and goalkeepers that keep clean sheets and make a lot of successful passes tend to be quite good on bonus. Meanwhile, if you look at the bench, I've still got Areola there at 4 million. He looks as likely as any other 4 million keeper to actually get starts at some point this season. But if you can see another one out there that you prefer, then that can be really any 4 million keeper. I think at Wolves, potentially Bentley might be a shout for a 4 million starting keeper if Jose Sarr were to leave the club. But for now, I quite like Areola there. Moving on to the defence in focus, and the 2 most expensive assets I've got in the back 4 are Chilwell and Stones. Obviously, I'm missing Trent in this draft, and he is a player I would love to squeeze in, but one of the main sacrifices I think most of us will have to make a balanced 2 premium draft is probably to not bother with Trent from the off. Now, obviously, there are a lot of negatives that go with that, but I think the defenders that I've picked should be able to cover off the points fairly well. Chelsea's opening fixture against Liverpool isn't fantastic, but their fixtures beyond that are really good. And Chilwell is bombing forwards and getting into great attacking positions already in pre-season. And we know from seasons past that he is an incredibly attacking defender and has very good goal threat. I actually prefer him to Reece James at the moment. I think Reece James, whilst he's a fantastic asset when fit, we just can't really rely on his fitness at the moment. And Chilwell just looks like he's getting into those more advanced positions down that left wing. I personally just have a really good gut feeling about Chilwell so far. Moving on to John Stones, and yes, it is risky going with any City defender from the off, but Stones, when fit, tends to be in Pep's favoured 11 throughout any given season. At 5.5 million, I think it could be worth the risk, and because I've got that bench cover in Pau Torres at the moment, I don't mind taking that risk from the off just that little bit, and if he starts 6 out of the first 7 or 5 out of the first 6, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep, knowing that clean sheets should be on the horizon for Man City when he is playing, and when he's not, we've got a decent bench to help cover that absence. Moving down a little bit to the 5 million assets, and I don't think there'll be too many complaints about either of these. Gabriel at 5 million as a route into the Arsenal defence seems really simple. He's got great goal threat for a centre-back, and Arsenal's defence throughout last season was fantastic. Their fixtures to open up this campaign as well are really positive, so I don't think we need to overcomplicate matters with Gabriel. He's straight into my team in pretty much any draft. Estupiñán as well seems like a fairly obvious pick. He is highly owned at the moment, and I was considering looking elsewhere to see if there were opportunities, but because he's 5 million, because of the attacking threat, and because of Brighton's opening few fixtures, it kind of just seems logical to go with him from the off and then have a look at moving away from him after the first 3 or 4 game weeks when Brighton have had, hopefully, a pretty decent start. On the bench, as I mentioned, we've got Pau Torres. Now, that could really be any 4.5 million defender that you like the look of. But at the moment, I'm favouring Pau Torres as an easy route, as a cheap route into that Aston Villa defence, which I expect to get off to a pretty good start over the first 5 or 6 fixtures. Aston Villa are a team probably on the up right now, and I really want a slice of that defence. 4.5 million for a defender of his reputation seems like a bargain, and if I can trust him to start the season as a nailed centre-back for them, I really like him as an option. So this is where things get really interesting in this draft, and as you can see, I've managed to fit in Mo Salah as a 12.5 midfielder. That wasn't easy to do, and as I mentioned, sacrifices do have to be made in certain specific places to make this draft work, and I've just squeezed in on the budget at 100 million exactly. However, this midfield, despite the fact we're going with a 4-4-2, does actually look pretty stacked. You've still got Salah as that 12.5 premium, and then you've also got 2 mid to high price midfielders in Saka and Rashford, both of which are, I think, easy logical picks this season, and probably my preferred 2 of that cluster of midfielders around the 9 to 8 million mark. There are a number of other options out there: Heung-min Son, Bruno Fernandes, Maddison, Foden, Martinelli, Ødegaard. All of these assets will at some point prove popular, but I think from the off, both of these players seem like pretty safe bets to get you off to a decent start. And honestly, I'm quite surprised and happy that I was able to squeeze both of them into my team with Mo Salah and not make too many sacrifices to the team structure elsewhere. If we move down a bit and look at the 6.5 million midfielder, he is my cheapest starting midfielder. I've gone with Mitoma personally. I think he's still a really good option this season. His attacking data was decent. When he got into the side around Christmas time, there was no looking back for Mitoma, and I expect him to kick on a little bit this season as well. If Mitoma isn't for you, that's absolutely fine. There are other 6.5 million options that I really like the look of too, but this is more about structure than anything else. And if you can find a 6.5 million asset you like more than Mitoma, feel free to squeeze them in instead. There's always Mbeumo. You've got Diaby, who's just signed for Villa as well. I really like both of them as options, and Eze at Crystal Palace, all of which could be fantastic options at that 6.5 million mark. But like I said, this is all about structure, and if I was picking a 6.5 million asset at the moment, it's probably going to be Mitoma. Moving to the bench, and this is probably one of the first major sacrifices that you have to make to fit in Salah and have a strong first 11. It means that I've had to go with a 4-man midfield with one, what I would consider bench fodder player in Nakamba. Now, he's now signed for Luton, having moved from Aston Villa. He's 4.5 million, so he's easy to squeeze in and you're not wasting any additional budget. And he should be fairly nailed into that Luton side. On the flip side, you don't really expect him to get many points through the season. He might pipe up with a goal or an assist once in every while, but realistically he's a bench fodder player that I wouldn't be comfortable starting in many game weeks, and I think that's where the first major sacrifice is made. It also means that I can't go with a 5-man midfield. A lot has been said about how strong the midfield options are this season, and honestly I'd love to fit 5 quality midfielders into my side because I think that's where the value probably lies. But if you want to go with Mo Salah, I think it's probably the easiest route to get there by downgrading one midfielder to free up that additional budget to upgrade a 9 million asset in midfield to Mo Salah. But I think overall the balance is still good, and when you've got Mo Salah in your team, you're always feeling pretty good about things. Okay, so on to the final section, and now we're looking at the forwards, and no surprises as to who the first forward is. Haaland obviously comes in as captain for game week 1. 14 million means that it is actually more difficult to get that second premium into your draft, and it's made the decision a slightly more difficult one as to whether you do want that second premium. In the example I've given today, I've managed to squeeze in both Salah and Haaland, and it gives me that captaincy rotation if I wanted it, but there is an argument to say that you don't really need the second premium if you're going to be captaining Haaland every single game week. So that's a decision you might want to make yourself. Another sacrifice I've had to make in this draft is to downgrade someone like a Gabriel Jesus at 8 million down to a Yohan Wissa at Brentford, for example. Now, I really like Brentford's fixtures to start off the season. I do want a Brentford player. Originally, I would have had Mbeumo, but because I'm going with that four-man midfield, I've had to drop Mbeumo, and instead of Jesus, I've needed to free up that budget a little bit. So what I've done is gone with Wissa to hopefully give me that cover. And with Tony out, I really like him as an option. He's doing well in pre-season so far, and structurally, I think Brentford are going to set up with him up top more often than not. If we're lucky, he might even end up on penalties, although if I'm honest, it's more likely to be Mbeumo. Now, when we look at the bench again, it's a weak third bench asset, and I've gone with Mbama at the moment. West Ham have been playing with him so far, and he's actually scored quite a few in pre-season. Not that I think pre-season form should really come into it, but at least he's in the equation at West Ham at the moment, and he might force his way into the starting 11 at some point during the season. He's also not high owned at the moment, so you're not going to risk losing team value by having him in your side from the off. He shouldn't reduce in value if people start selling him, because no one's even got him in the first place. There are a load of other options at 4.5 million you can pick from, and as I always mention, if Balogun gets a Premier League move to another side, he at 4.5 million could be a game breaker. He might not even have to be that third forward asset for you. He could in fact even be the second forward in your side, freeing up some money from even a 6 million asset like Wissa. Overall, I really like the look of this draft. Honestly, when I was first creating it, I didn't think I would. I thought it would have to make slightly too many sacrifices to squeeze in that second premium. And even though there are sacrifices that have had to be made, I think overall the balance of the squad is really quite decent. I've got a lot of defensive cover for all of the sides that I'm really concerned about covering off to start the season. Man United, Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal and Brighton are all good defences, and I expect them to keep plenty of clean sheets in the opening 6 or 7 fixtures. When you've got that 4.5 million asset of Pau Torres, for example, on the bench, it means that I don't need to worry so much about rotation or injury when we've got Chilwell or Stones in the side. Moving forwards in the team, most of those players seem pretty nailed to me, and it hopefully means that I won't need to rely on my bench beyond the first bench asset that often during the season. So overall, I really like this draft. I'm not sure if it's quite enough for me to move away from my one premium draft I'm currently on, but it's certainly given me a lot to think about. Undoubtedly, there will be teams out there with Mo Salah from the start of the season that get off to a absolute storming start, because of course Mo Salah is a fantastic asset. It's just about finding balance in your side elsewhere. Let me know what you think of this side in the comments below. That would be really appreciated. And if you've got a 2 premium draft, why don't you let us know how you've managed to structure it, and if you think you've got a better way round than the one I've presented today. As always, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be really greatly appreciated, as we're still building this channel from pretty much scratch at the moment. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the rest of pre-season and are as excited as me to get going with FPL in 23-24. I'll see you next time.